Hi, and welcome back to the Christian Lounge Experience. Right now, we're going to continue with chapter 2 in the book of Genesis using the King James Version. And I'm going to start at verse 1. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the hosts of them. And the seventh day God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made. Now, it sounds a little repetitious there, but from my experience with God, from my relationship, God repeats things, not because he stutters, but because he puts an emphasis on it. Once again, he's continuously stating that God created, God created, God created. Then he says on the seventh day, he rested from all the things that God created. It was obviously very, very good and pleasing to God. And then God sanctified the seventh day. Sanctified the seventh day. There was no more creation that needed to be done on the seventh day. So God rested on the seventh day. Now we're going to pick up and continue actually and verse 4. These are the generations of the heavens and of the earth when they were created in the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens. It's starting to slow down a minute and give you a little bit of clarity and information on a particular event that was created by God. And God, and every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew, for the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth. So there was no rain in the earth at this time. And there was not a man to till the ground, but there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. Now God in all his power and might knew that there was no man at that time to take care of the plants and the trees and all of the seed-bearing fruit. So what he did is he caused a mist, because there was no rain. It had never rained before. This is the beginning. This is the creation. This is the beginning. It's telling you how everything came about. So God caused a mist from the earth to come up to take care of the vegetation. God is a provider, and he always finds a way to take care of everything and anything that he has given life to, that he's created. In verse 7, and the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Not evolution, not created from germs. I guess that could have derived from maybe a Big Bang theory. God created man of the dust of the ground. He breathed into his very nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Verse 8. And the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground the Lord God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, and the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So out of the ground the Lord God grew every tree that was pleasant to the sight and that was good for food. He also had a tree of life that was in the midst of the garden, and then there was also a second tree, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Verse 10, and a river went out of Eden to the garden, and from thence it was parted and became into 4 heads. The name of the first is the Pison. That it is which compasses whole land of Havathal, where there was gold. Verse 12, and the gold of that land is good. There is bdellium, and the oxen stone. The name of the second river is Gihon. The same is that compasseth of the whole land of Ethiopia. The first mention of Africa in the Bible. Verse 14. And the name of the third river is Hiddekel. That is which goeth toward the east of Assyria. And the fourth river is the Euphrates. Verse 15. And the Lord God took man and put him in the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. So God created man out of the dust. He breathed into his nostrils, and he became a living soul. He became alive. He gave him dominion and power and control over everything that was in the garden, because we read that already in part 1, which is Genesis chapter 1. And here we go with verse 16. And the Lord God commanded man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat. Of every tree in the garden thou mayest freely eat. Let's pay particular attention to verse 17 of chapter 2. But, this is a commandment now, because you got a but. There's a clause. But of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not, he's telling you what to do, to not eat of it. For in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. Pretty profound. There's many, many, many trees in the Garden of Eden. There's also that tree of life. And there is also the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And God is saying that we could eat upon every tree. Eat from every tree. But the one tree that he names is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You should surely not eat of it. I mean, surely means without a doubt. Eat of it. Because that day that you touch or you eat of it, you will surely die. Again, without a doubt, this is a commandment coming from God. Picking it up in verse 18. And the Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helpmeet for him. And out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air, and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. And whatsoever Adam called every living creature, there was the name thereof. Now in the beginning, God, in Genesis chapter 1, God spoke a name. He said day, he said night. That's what it's called to this current time. He says that there be stars. He mentioned whales. He mentions the heavens and the earths. Things had names. And God created it not by the work of his hands, but by his spoken word. He also gave man the dominion, power, and control over every living creature that was in the skies, in the waters, and on the earth. And now we see that in Genesis chapter 2, verse 19, God is saying to Adam, whatsoever you call every little creature, that was the name thereof. So whatever Adam named the creatures, monkey, gorilla, alligator, eagle, whatever it was, that was the name that we now know it to be. Verse 21, and the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs, and closed up the flesh instead thereof. And the rib which the Lord God had taken from man, he made woman, and brought her unto man. And Adam said, This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Verse 24. And therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife. Wow. First mentioning of a marriage. Wife. And they shall be one flesh. Let's go back again and pay attention to verse 24. Therefore a man leave his father and his mother. Okay, so opposite sex. Leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife. First mention of a marriage. You can't have a wife without a marriage. And they shall be one flesh. They should be joined together as one. Put a star next to that, because some point along the studying of the Bible, that verse is going to become even more profound than it is spoken in Genesis chapter 2 verse 24. It's going to be repeated in a different part of the Bible, but the content will remain the same. And they were both naked, verse 25, the man and his wife, and they were not ashamed.